Do you remember when you realized who you were? For me, it was the year 2000, which started, I survived Y2K. Turns out I did not need all those batteries and gallons of water after all. But by the time the year ended, I had graduated law school, passed the bar exam, and I moved out here to Dayton to begin my professional career. Not as a lawyer or as an attorney, but as a prosecutor. Now this distinction, it meant more to me than most because being a prosecutor was more than just a job or even a mission for me. It was a label by which I identified myself to the world, but also to myself. You see, I would tell people all the time, hey, when God said, I'm going to build Lance, I'm going to make me a prosecutor. And that's what he did. And when people would ask me, hey, are you an attorney? I would say, no, I'm a prosecutor. Even though I knew almost without fail that answer would create confusion instead of clarity. Being a prosecutor brought me a sense of pride that frankly I had never felt before. I was really good at my job, but more importantly, I did real good by it. And over time, my sense of identity wrapped itself around that label of prosecutor, almost like a piece of foil wrapping itself tightly around my badge. I had other labels that applied to me at the time. So at that point in my life, I had been a son for about 26 years. I had been a Christian for about 20, and I'd been a husband for 5. But if you asked me who I was a prosecutor. Then one day, I got fired, and I wasn't a prosecutor anymore. Even now, it's been 11 years, I still remember the pain in my gut when I had to turn in my badge. I didn't cry driving home on I-75. I wept. When the hours of shock and then the days of anger became months and months of outright depression, I slowly started to realize something profound. You see, what knocked me off my stride for so long wasn't just the wounded pride of being told to leave. And it wasn't just the fear of suddenly being without my income as a new father to a 5-month-old daughter. It was deeper than that. Because I had so over-identified with that label of prosecutor, I had defined myself by it, that when it was taken from me, I didn't know who I was anymore. And when that happened, new and darker labels moved in to fill the void. Eventually, after about a year of rather painful unemployment, I got back to being a prosecutor again. And once again, that label was an accurate adjective that described me, but something was different. See, I knew I couldn't go back to allowing that label to be the synonym that defined who I was. There had to be more to my sense of self than just that one label. Now, we do this all the time. We take things that are true about ourselves and we over-identify with them to such an extent that we lose touch with some of the other pieces of our identity that matter as well. So it could be a talent that more than just bringing the respect of our peers becomes the very source of our feeling worthy of respect. Or it could be a relationship that brings more than just a love. It becomes the source of our feeling worthy of love. Being so focused on one aspect of who we are like this, it makes for a fragile sense of self, one that is at risk of real damage when adversity comes. And let's face it, adversity always comes. At some point, the job gets lost, the talent proves insufficient, or the relationship ends. And when those events happen, we can't be so fragile that taking a single punch puts us on the ground for a year like it did me. For each and every one of us here, there's other people counting on us too much to let that happen. But labeling ourselves like this, it does more than just hamper our sense of resilience. It also short-circuits our ability to interface with other people. Now that word interface is important because it describes the interaction of two otherwise incompatible things. So for example, we use the word interface to describe how keyboards and mice, touchscreens, and VR headsets, how they enable our chemical brains to interact with the electrical circuits of a computer, their obvious differences notwithstanding. Now, it's already hard enough to interface with people who are different from us. But what we do with our labels, we're making it harder. See, when we take these labels and we define ourselves by them, it exacerbates the problem. Now, there are voices that say, well, the problem's with the labels. That by using these things to talk about ourselves, we're choosing division over unity almost by default. And I don't believe that. The problem isn't the labels. It's not that they're negative labels, or even that they're inaccurate labels. The problem is what we're doing with them. We're using them to define the boundaries of who we are. And when we do that, it doesn't matter what the label is. We flatten every last one of them into mere tribal markers, like these two. Now, you may remember Dr. Seuss introducing us to the starbelly sneetches, who would have nothing to do with their plain belly cousins. When a technology arrived, though, that could put stars on those plain bellies, you'd think that would have solved the problem. But it didn't. You see, even though the plain bellies now had stars, the natural-born starbelly sneetches still wanted nothing to do with them. So much so, they went and got another machine and literally took their stars off. Because at the end of the day, what mattered wasn't the having of the stars. It was having an exclusive identity. It's all well and good to recognize and, yes, even celebrate our differences. But it's another thing altogether to cling to them above everything else. Now, the point here is not to say that your stars and my stars don't matter, whatever they are. Of course they matter. How you see the world and how the world sees you, well, it matters a great deal. But our growing interface problem isn't one of mandatory exclusion like it's been in times past, thank God. But we're becoming more isolated from the people who don't share our labels nowadays because it is more and more we who are choosing voluntary seclusion. We sort ourselves by these labels so that we can have conversations inside of echo chambers, and we only leave those safe spaces to go fight with the other side. Forget understanding and tolerance. It's fast becoming a social virtue to not hear what the other side has to say. Now, this spells real trouble for the whole idea of progress and innovation. Because as authors Matt Ridley and Stephen Johnson have both illustrated, the whole story of human advancement is one of creatively mixing already existing different ideas. So, inspiring musicians, for example, they don't invent the notes that they compose with. And master chefs, they don't invent the spices they cook with. The creativity is in the mixing. The more different and surprising the elements involved, the greater the artistry at work. So take, for example, one of the most innovative and disruptive companies around right now, Airbnb. When it was originally founded in 2008 as Airbed and Breakfast, the founders of Airbnb didn't invent the idea of the bed or the breakfast, and not even the bed and breakfast. And they certainly weren't the first people who ever put up a guest on an air mattress on their living room. They didn't dream up the internet, write the language that runs it, design the browsers that surf it, or even conceive of putting classified ads on it. They weren't the first people to recognize the monetary value of trust. They didn't invent the customer review that converts that trust into an asset. Nor were they the people who figured out how to secure payments online between strangers that you need to protect that trust. In fact, they caught a lot of flack in design circles for not even being very original in the design of their new logo. And yet, After only 8 years, Airbnb is the largest travel lodging company in the world. Despite owning zero real estate and having invented none of the elements of their success. Right. But what the founders of Airbnb did, is they were the ones who creatively mixed all of these existing ingredients together in just this way. This process, this creative mixing, it can only occur if the different ideas, and yes, the different people who have those different ideas, they've got to mix it up with each other. But the more we take these labels that we have for ourselves and we use them to define who we are, the boundaries in which we will live, the less likely that mixing is going to occur. Now, over 2,000 years ago, Aristotle taught that the words we use to describe things literally shapes how we think about them. Nearly 70 years ago, George Orwell showed the power of words to do the opposite, to hide meaning and discourage thought. If our labels for ourselves are to be a source of creativity, if they are to stimulate thought instead of smother it, we have to put them in their proper perspective as simply different ways of naming the different facets of what it means to be human. Because at its core, being human is about exceeding our limitations, not defining ourselves by them. See, we don't just use these legs and feet to walk upright. We put footprints on the moon. We don't just use these larger brains to process information more rationally and rapidly. We unlock the mysteries of the universe. And we don't just use this magical gift of language to speak. We make dreams come to life. So, who are you? What about you up there? Who are you? What about you? If not your name, by what label would you identify yourself? Your politics? Your religion? Maybe it's the title of your gender. Maybe it's the title on your business card. Is it the color of your skin? Is it the color of your uniform? Regardless of what label you would answer there, the most important question is this: does that label describe you or define you? Does it serve as a window that frames how you see the world, but still allows different views to pass through? Or is it more like a mirror, that whatever you hold it up against, it always reflects the same thing? You. Whatever labels are true for you, know this: there's more to you than that. There's more to every one of us than that. And embracing that moreness, that's the key to resiliently handling life's adversity and creatively solving life's problems. So who are you?